This man has had to do this a lot of times. Now, on the football field, he's in 2 different teams' Ring of Honors.
Damn.
Okay? Two teams. You get into one Ring of Honor, it's like, holy hell, one of the best players in the history of the franchise. Wow. That's phenomenal. 2 teams. There's only 32 teams. 2 NFL teams he's in the Ring of Honor for. He also was a minor league baseball player.
Yeah. Jeez.
Minor league baseball player. Has the first win ever through the first pitch in the history of the Florida Marlins franchise. In the minor leagues, but that was so we're talking professional baseball player, 2 Ring of Honors.
Wow.
He's got to be a big dumb dipshit though, doesn't he? Uh-huh. He can't be this athletic and have a brain.
Yeah, he's not. Can't do that. No, of course not.
Can't do that. Well, then he go and be like the best commentator on TV. And then what's he do? Well, he's so good on TV, he actually gets a general manager job for the San Francisco 49ers, who have been to the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl like every single year that he's been there. And he has the greatest last pick of the draft in the history of the drafts. Ladies and gentlemen, a superhuman. Oh, he went to Stanford.
Oh, okay. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, seemingly everything. John Lynch.
Yeah, John.
Holy shit.
What's up, fellas?
And an 8K.
How you guys doing?
You got an 8K camera over there. Look at, oh my God, you look good, John.
You go on the McAfee Show, you bring in the big dogs. We got our studios up here. I came in my office. I said, what the hell's going on? I thought we had a little Zoom.
Well,
but,
we normally
happy birthday, man. I heard it's your birthday.
It is.
Happy birthday, dude.
Thank you, John. This is a great gift, getting a chance to chat with you. We've been a big fan for a long time. I think I got to tell you that on a Thursday night game up in Stanford when I saw you on the sideline. I'm like, hey, man, I am a massive fan. And that wasn't me just like bullshitting because there was nobody else to talk to at that time. It was kind of an uncomfortable situation, but it was actual truth. We're big fans over here, man. Thank you for making time.
Yeah, big fans of what you guys do. What's up, AJ? It's been a while.
I know it has. Congrats on all your success, man.
I think it's been since we played golf at Tahoe.
What is he? Is he good? AJ, he's good?
Of course he's good. He's good. He can play.
This son of a bitch. So hold on, Lynch. So you, so 2 Ring of Honors, obviously. You know, Tampa and Denver do the whole thing. Then you're a Super Bowl champion. This is absurd. Just this in of itself is absurd as a player. Whenever you get into the GM role, okay, and we all know guys that are in locker rooms that are going to be like a coach or front office personnel, and I think a lot of people normally doubt him, like, nah, that guy. Okay, we get it. You're going to be a great coach. For you, did you know you would be good in front office? Did you know that you'd be a great businessman? Because that's what you have to do in your position right now, and now you're the president of football ops as well. It's like, did you know that this was going to be something you would succeed at? Did you go in just like kind of blank slate? How'd you get into this, and did you predict this to yourself whenever you took the gig?
Yeah, I didn't know I'd be good at it. I didn't even know I'd be doing it. You know, it's an interesting story as to how I ended up here. I ask myself that often, but I think the thing that probably, way back when I was a kid, I did love like the NFL draft. My dad used to pull me out of school, out of St. James Catholic School. So, it's back when it started on Thursday, and at half day he'd come pick me up at lunch. We'd go watch the draft. So I loved that. Throughout my career, I'd piss my wife off by not only watching round 1 through 3, but then watching round 7. And I'm filling out sheets and doing all that. And she's going, really? I'm like, come on now. We've got better stuff to do. So I've always had an interest like that. But I think the thing that probably piqued my interest, I was living in Denver after I got done playing there and had become friendly with Elway. We played some golf together, and he looked out for me. We had the same high school coach. We went to Stanford, played football, baseball. Same fraternity. That was like the poster on my wall. But Elway took the leap at the Broncos, and in his first year, he asked me. He said, "Johnny, I'm keeping a lot of the scouts, but I don't know them. And I love the way you think about football. Could you watch the safeties this year and write some reports?" And so I did that for him. And I remember it was the year of like Mark Barron and Harrison Smith, and I took a lot of pride in. I had no idea how scouts did things, but I just watched it like I would watch film. And I sat there at the computer and wrote some reports. And Elway was blown away with like the detail. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. The next year, he says, that was awesome, Johnny. Why don't you do the DBs? So I did the entire DBs. I added the corners. The next year, he invites me in for their draft process. And this was all like, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of time. I went to Indy. I went to the combine with the Broncos that year. And so that started piquing my interest. And, long after that, there was a guy who ended up bidding for the Carolina Panthers, and he didn't get the team. Tepper got it. But there was another gentleman by the name of Ben Navarro, and I worked with his brother at Fox. And he one time asked if he could meet with me, and out of the blue asked me if I would run his team if he got the Panthers. And I said, really? Are you serious? And he asked me to kind of put together a vision statement for how I would run a team. And so I spent a couple weeks doing that. I met with him. And from that point forward, I kind of just said, if the right scenario ever came about, this might be something I want to do. I love the folks at NFL on Fox. I was working with Kevin Burkhardt, who's now at the top, and so happy for that dude. He's going to be working with Brady this year.
Same.
But, I was missing like competition. I was missing scoreboard. I was missing the wins, the losses, all of that. And then, it out of nowhere, something was keeping me up at night one year, and I didn't even know what it was. And my wife said, something's on your mind. I know you when you're acting like this, you can't sleep. And I had done a bunch of Falcon games that year, and Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. It's the year they went to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And, I heard something like Kyle Shanahan's going to get this Niners job, and that's the one he wants. But somebody said he's struggling to find a GM he wants to work with. And so something was on my mind. I had done a bunch of Kyle's games that year, and I gave him a cold call. And I just said, hey, dude, I want to thank you for all the time you've given me all year in these production meetings. I heard something that you're struggling to find a GM. And he goes, I am, man. It's killing me. I think I am going to take that Niners job. And he goes, why are you asking? And I said, well, consider me, I don't even know if I do it, but, just think about that and see what you think. And his first question, he's like, dude, why would you do that? You got a great job. You got a great life. Like, why would you even consider doing that? And I said, you go play your games. He did. He called back and he said, man, I can't stop thinking about what you said to me. Would you do that? And I want you to come meet this dude named Jed. Well, that dude named Jed was our owner here, Jed York. Came and met Jed. We flew cross country to Atlanta. I was offered the job on that flight. We meet with Kyle and the whole thing's wrapped up. I hadn't even talked to my wife or family yet. It all moved kind of fast, and here we are 8 years later. So sorry for the long story.
No. I'm hoping we get 3 or 4 more of those. That was phenomenal. Hey, thank you for blessing us with that information. And also, shout out to you being somebody taking initiative and being like, you know what? Yeah, this is something I want. And diving right in and being prepared and knowing that you're prepared. Hey, those private planes, good meeting spots. You can't go anywhere. Can't go anywhere.
That's true.
And if they turn off the Wi-Fi, which is just a little, you're trapped.
Locked in.
You're only in there with the people that you're with. I've heard a lot of high value humans potentially do that. I'm happy to hear Jed did that and get you the gig. And then when you get dropped in there, is it like first day now? You're calling John Elway saying, what's the first job here other than getting my office? Like, is there already a relationship between you and Kyle Shanahan decided upon? Like, hey, this is how we're going to work together. Here's what every day looks like. Like, how does that all come together at the beginning of this whole thing?
Well, first there, like, I've always been a somewhat confident person, but I've always been realistic. And so I remember some of the conversations before I went and met with Jed. I was like, John, I've never done this, And he goes, no, you've sat in our meetings. I've seen your reports. He goes, Johnny, look, 2 things. You know football and you know how to lead. And if you know those things, you surround yourself with a great team and you'll figure out everything else. And I think that was wise advice. It gave me the confidence that I could indeed do it. And but yeah, it was a leap of faith. And so, had to find people. Adam Peters was my first hire. Martin Mayhew, a guy I had played with, who had sat in my seat, in the general manager seat. But he was one of my mentors in 1993 when I went to the Bucs. He was a guy who came from Washington as a free agent. And so Martin was my second hire, and we started putting together a team. And Kyle and I just figured it out. We started, I think the thing that drew us together is then when we talked, we had a lot of similar beliefs. Kyle started his professional coaching career on the defensive side at Tampa, working for Monty Kiffin, who I played for years. And so we were both big believers on, man, a team's got to be, yes, you got to find your quarterback, but then you got to find the guys that knock down the quarterback, the guys up front. And how do you know that? Well, I knew it because I played in Tampa with Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice. And then I went to Denver, and I had some great dudes out there, but they weren't Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice. And I once had the quote, 5 Mississippi's a lot harder than 3. My job got a lot harder. And so beliefs like that get entrenched. And then we just figured it out. And we went about building a culture with the right right type of people. We went to great lengths to define what we thought, build a championship organization. And this is a place who had a long history. I was drawn to the Niners because of the history. I went to school right up the road. Bill Walsh was my coach my senior year. And the Niners culture is special. And, I walked by 5 trophies and, we've been to 4 or 5 NFC championships. We've been to a couple Super Bowls. But man, it kills me that we've come close, but we haven't knocked down that wall. And we need to add a 6th trophy. And so that's what I'm committed to doing. And that's what we're committed to doing. And there's been some heartbreak, but the only thing I know how to do is you go back, you try to find a way to get a little bit better. You keep your belief up and you take some more swings at it. And that's what we'll continue to do.
Yeah, let's start to climb over again. It feels like you're the perfect guy for the perfect job in the perfect place at the perfect time.
Yep.
I don't know, just from what I'm hearing right here. Good for the Niners, man.
Unreal.
Good for the Niners. Go ahead, AJ.
John, you mentioned, earlier before you were the GM, you kind of missed the scoreboard and kind of having something, I don't know, competition, whatever it may be. What's it like, wins and losses as a GM compared to when you were a player? Like, are the wins sweeter as a GM, the losses tougher now as a player? I would imagine when you don't have control over it and you're not on the field physically making plays, sometimes I know that can be difficult.
Game day sucks. It's awful. Not a damn thing you can do about it. And that is really hard. It really is. And, I remember my first year doing this, I'd be up there and the cameras were on you a lot because you come from a different background of doing this. And the cameras would constantly, and I'd be pounding the table or whatnot. And my dad would say, hey, don't let them see you sweat, some poise. You're going to have to learn to do that. But I'd become so accustomed to doing something on game day and I can't do a damn thing. I mean, like if someone gets hurt, you start calling guys for the next week for tryouts or something. But I think what you come to know is that your job is 365 days a year, helping run an organization, help lead an organization, bringing in the right people. And yeah, hay is in the barn come game day, but I can still be passionate. And I live and die with these guys. I've been through what these players have been through. So I respect the heck out of what they do. I know how hard it is, how difficult it is, how much sacrifice their families make. And so really more than anything, I just pull for these guys and try to be there to support them and support our coaches. And it's fun until that game kicks off and then realizing it doesn't get any easier knowing that there's nothing you can do come game day.
What you're a pacer during the games? You pace back and forth?
I'm a pacer. I'm a pacer. I'm standing up. I try stupid superstitions. I stand up on defense, sit on offense. It's just, I get the cool thing that, I like doing. I go to every night before meeting. I don't think a lot of, I just like feeling in tune with our team.
What's our last message? What's our last message before we're going out there? I want to be a part of that. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like hearing the script, the offensive script, the first 24. Kyle puts in 24 plays. It gives me a feel for what's going on in the game. I sit in all those meetings, so you feel that connection. And I think that connection, knowing what our players are going through, helps you make the necessary moves to try to help complement what we need at the given time. So,
I didn't even think about like knowing what one of your, not that you don't know Shanahan's offense from watching him work and everything, like how can I make this roster better for what he likes to do? Like, hey, this is what he likes to do. Clearly, this is what these coaches like. This is what defense guy likes to do. Not that you wouldn't know. You're John Lynch. You're in 2 rings of honor in the NFL.
Which should be 3 probably.
Yeah, you're going to be in 3. Yeah, that is an absolutely absurd thing. I love to hear that. You look jocked too. Are you working out with the boys too? Are we in there with Bosa and Kittle and the boys? We in there working out?
No, I've redistributed the weight, but a little more linebacker than safety these days. But I try to stay in some shape.
Yeah, fast linebackers are good in 2024. Yeah, mm-hmm. Hey, is that coming? Hey, what do we think? Got smaller for speed, the defense, right? We kind of lost the big jaw meathead from Ohio, AJ. Not that AJ was slow. He ran a 4.4, even though one of his defense coordinators thought he couldn't be on the field with Michael Vick at the same time.
That's right.
Yeah, people thought that was a situation where, jawline over there was not happy. Still talks about it. Still talks about it to this day. But do you think, especially with the way you guys play, which is a lot of hard nose, Debo is obviously somebody that's going to get brought up in this conversation, but that style of football is something you guys are known for. Do you think it's going to be cyclical? Not just your team, but like football as a whole? You think you're going to have to get beefier again because there's going to be more power in football as opposed to wide open like it has been here?
the league's always cyclical. I find it fascinating. When I first got in the league in '93, the remnants of the run and shoot were around, but the bigger back, the Jerome Bettis's. I remember the people asked me the hardest I've ever been hit on a field. Without a doubt, it was Craig Ironhead Hayward. He got in shape one year, and I think that put him at 280 in Atlanta. And they were running the run and shoot, and they would run this. We called it Atlanta Draw. And it was like the parting of the seas. They had four receivers, everyone. And Herm Edwards, I remember him telling me, like, Lynchburg, I know what you're going to do, man. You're going to run up there, but I'm telling you, this dude's different. You're going to come out faster than you went in. and go low on him. Go low. Do not go in there going high. And, that's like just telling me, he might as well said, go in there and try to hit him high. Because as soon as he told me go low, you got to go low. Of course, I was
this
going to
guy's
go
calling me out. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is that how you? This guy's name's Ironhead.
I came up there full speed, and I learned why they called him Ironhead. Yeah. And my whole body I've never felt that, like toes to head. It just went numb, and I shouldn't be telling people that, but I was okay. But I learned my lesson, and I learned why that guy was called Craig Ironhead Hayward. But my point was, it went from the bigger back later on. Speed is always going to be important, but things shift, and we went through that shift when we brought Debo in here. We were all into separators at the wide receiver position, but there was a trend going on that teams were pressing the rules on defense in terms of holding wide receivers within those 5 yards. And if you're not strong enough or powerful enough, you can't get away from that. So Debo was kind of our response. We need a bully. We need somebody who plays with power. And Debo lit the league up. We watched a guy at South Carolina who was so strong. We had him at the Senior Bowl and just saw how thick this dude was and the power that he played the game with. And so, yeah, it's fun to watch the cycles that go on. I think the game is much more spread out now. And so the ability to play in space is critical. But I do think that, like, we're in a league right now where you got to have the ability to play with power. And, I think we talk about during the draft, like this last week, and we drafted a bunch of Niners. And that's guys who love to compete, guys that can run, who can, we always want to be a fast team. But then physical guys that play with knockback. We hear so much about health and safety measures and that taking the physicality out of the game. I don't believe that's true. I think, whoever's the aggressor, whoever's doing the knocking back is going to win. And we try to add players that do that.
Yeah, you talked about Cade Stover, and you talked about him being banged up. I think he had an MCL. He played through what a lot of guys probably wouldn't play through. And you just mentioned Debo, but you talk about George Kittle and Ayuk's down the field blocking. And everybody, I remember there was a time last year where another team, Pittsburgh Steelers, had a wide receiver that wouldn't block because he didn't want to get rolled up on. And then literally, like, maybe the next game was you guys, and you're number one in the NFC, potentially going to say what teams want to be, and all your wide receivers are 20 yards down the field blocking and bodying, and it's like, hey, that's part of the culture right there. That is literally a part of the culture. Yeah. You can feel that, I assume, whenever it settles in. And at this point, finding Niners easier or harder than maybe when you were trying to figure out your culture?
I think it's easier when you've had that continuity of Kyle and I working together. And I told you early on, we went into great lengths in terms of defining exactly what we want in terms of the talent and the spirit. What are the qualities that we want in a Niner? And those things are fluid and they change. But, we have a saying around here, our wide receiver coach, Leonard Hankerson, and he tells those guys, block, no rock. So you want the ball, you best be blocking for your teammates. And you see Christian McCaffrey doing it for Debo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk is a tremendous. I love the way that guy plays, his spirit. Jawan Jennings taking the dude from Green Bay into the Gatorade. Bam. I mean, that stuff is contagious. And that's what we talk about. We want guys that are contagiously competitive. We have a standard. Once that standard's set, if you think the guy's made of the right stuff, he may not have been asked to block like that in college. So you have to do some predicting of, let's get to know the person. What was he asked to do? Are you willing to do that? And so those are the people we try to bring in, like-minded people. And we have a standard in which we play. And the players, it's up to them to uphold that standard. Kyle says often, his roots are as a wide receiver. He played wide receiver in college. He coached wide receiver as the first position. But those guys set the tone for an offense on the physicality of your team. And you often think that's the offensive line. But I've come to really believe that when the receivers are out there blocking, it raises all.
Yeah, the offensive lineman better.
Field.
Yeah, the offensive lineman better be blocking if the wide receivers are blocking. I didn't even think about that either, because it's just like natural that the offensive linemen are going to have to be physical. But if you have a bunch of dogs on the outside, everybody sees that. It heightens everything, and that's brilliant. I don't think I've ever heard that either.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's something that, like the link to the past here with the Niners, that's something Jerry Rice and John Taylor and Bill Walsh used to always talk about. You're not playing for me if you're not going to block at wide receiver. And so it's a tradition that is carried on, and it's something we're real proud of. But you got to redo it. You got to recreate it every year. It doesn't just show up. That has to be your standard, and that comes from the work we do on the practice field.
Okay, so last question from me before the boys have some, and we can't thank you enough for joining us. You just complimented Ricky Pearsall immensely, I think. From what I just heard,
Yep.
You said this is the only type of guys we're going to take. It's like, okay, well, sounds like we just learned a lot about Ricky there, who you just drafted. Now, you just sat up. Good, smart play, because this one's going to be talked about. Yeah, smart, John. You know it. You obviously Stanford brain.
Gets it.
Wide receiver room. You got a lot of business you're going to have to do. And I think you've even mentioned before, like, we've had to do this before too, seemingly always us having to do this. And it's because of the eyeing of talent, the finding of talent, bringing in of talent, success, a lot of eyeballs, and everybody wanting, everybody that you have seemingly on your team, especially when you have a plethora. That wide receiver room has a lot of business that has to be handled. Is that how you see it? And what are your thoughts on how you're going to, kind of navigate it all, knowing that humans are involved, money's involved, and having a football team ready to go this fall that needs to win a Super Bowl so that we can add a 6th trophy to the wall there in San Francisco?
Yeah, well, here's my thoughts. I love our roster. I love the way it's comprised. As I said, we were right there, and we got to find a way to get just a little bit better. And I'm doing everything in my power to keep our roster together, and that's my goal. And I don't question that. I've got so much belief. When you talk about guys like Brandon Ayuk and Debo, they're guys we drafted. They're guys we take a lot of pride in what they've become, who they've become, and we couldn't be more proud of those guys. And so, during the course of drafts and off seasons, do conversations happen? Absolutely, they do. We're past that now, and we're thrilled to add to that group Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, Chris Conley, Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, and now you add Ricky Pearsall, Jake Cowing. I think we made an already strong group even stronger. And part of my job is to think about the now and then to think into the future as well. Think out, and so. But we don't do that without thinking, can these guys contribute right away? And we have a vision for both those guys, how they can contribute and be a part. And they represent a lot of the qualities that we like in our players. And they were the best players there for us at the time. And so we're thrilled to add those guys to an already strong room. And we're ready to roll forward. And we've got to find a way, like I said, just to get that much better. And we think we really helped our roster throughout this offseason, free agency, into the draft. And we're fired up about our team.
John, you're awesome, dude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I did not expect this. I mean, I should have, with everything that we let off about the rest of his life. Banger after banger after banger after
Hall of Fame life.
Hall of Famer,
Yeah,
Hall of Fame.
truly.
Like everything he did. You're awesome on it. I am so thankful you took time. Now, a lot of the roster stuff, I think, is potentially because you have the cheapest draft pick available contract at the highest priced position. Connor has a question for you.
Yeah, obviously someone who loves the wide receivers, Brock Purdy. And we all know in this room that 2 years ago, you guys had Purdy as the number one player in the draft. You just luckily didn't have to take him till 262. What did you see in Brock, John, when you guys were looking at him and drafting him? And then now, here you are, 2 years later, two NFC championships, one Super Bowl appearance later. What do you see from him now and kind of his growth? And are you mentally prepared for a $500 million check, or how are you going to do that?
Way to set me up for success. But no, you always, I think the people you don't hear about, the unsung heroes, like in these organizations, and that's, to me, it's our scouts, it's our coaches, and I think two people deserve so much credit for Brock Purdy, and one of them now is in our pro department. He's a guy by the name of Steve Slowick. His brother's Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator down there in Houston. But Steve was the college scout that would go through Iowa State, and we thought Brock might come come out into the league the year before. We had high grades on him, actually a little higher his junior year than his senior year. But Steve was a guy who had the benefit of going into that school, hearing Matt Campbell, who did such a great job at Iowa State turning that program around. And Steve would always come during these draft meetings, in the fall meetings, in the draft meetings, and just speak so glowingly about Brock and the culture changer he was, how Iowa State would not be where they're at without Brock Purdy. And Steve was seeing it with his own eyes, but he was also telling us what Matt Campbell was saying. And Matt Campbell had been, there's good recommenders, and Matt had always proven to be a really good recommender. When he believed in a guy, it usually translated. And so Steve was very integral in that process. The other guy I'd say was Brian Greasy. Brian was incredibly impressed once we kind of gave Brian to him and said, hey, get on these Zooms, start talking to Brock. And Greasy came back extremely convicted. And then it's in Kyle's hands, it's in my hands, and we start watching. And, we were so smart, we waited till the very last pick to draft him. And thank God he was there. He's been tremendous for our organization. And you really could see it right away. I think he was 4th on our depth chart. And there's a corny saying that people say, about training camp and don't count your reps, make your reps count. And the one thing we saw about Brock, he'd get 3 or 4 reps a practice when we first started. But man, he didn't come in and just play it safe. He was ripping it in windows that were small and doing so with confidence. That's a hard thing to do, because it's an easy way to get run right out of here when you're the last pick in the draft and you're trying to make these bold plays. But he just played with a confidence, a poise, and you start seeing that. Then it's like Kyle says, well, let's give him 6 reps, and then let's give him 8 and 10. And he just kept kind of doing it over and over and over again. And Trey got hurt, and, he eventually just kept getting better. And then ultimately Jimmy Garoppolo, who had come back, got hurt versus Miami. Brock goes in, and kind of the rest is history. He played with an incredible – I'll never forget that first game against the Dolphins. I mean, Brian Flores was the defensive coordinator, the head coach then. And, if you watch Minnesota, they come at you harder than anybody. They blitz more than anybody. Well, that's what they did with Brock out there. And the poise with which he took that challenge on and led us to a victory, man, you started to think we might be on to something. And then it just kept getting better. And Brock's been awesome. And we're thrilled to have him part of our organization. He's an awesome kid. And he's got a lot of ability. And it's a great story, but it's more than a story now. He's our guy, and we're thrilled to have him.
Yeah, he's awesome. And there's a bunch of rumors every offseason about conversations that you have potentially, or Shanahan has with people, and you just saying there, he's our guy, and it's awesome, is a beautiful thing, because, when Mr. Irrelevant comes around, now everybody's going to say, this could be a next Brock Purdy.
Look out.
That's what they're going to say. And guess what? They're not. They are. This dude is an anomaly, I think. From everything, from the way he dresses, the way he responds to things, the way he acts, the way he throws, the confidence in which you say he talked about on day 1, 4 reps, trying to throw some seeds. If those are pick 6, this guy sucks. Why are we wasting a body on him? Instead, he becomes your guy. He's jacked too, huh? Was that Photoshop I saw on the internet, or is he...
Yeah, Brock's taking good care of himself. He's a worker. He's always going to work. I mean, last year, you remember he, against Philly in the championship game, tore up his elbow, and just kept watching him beat timelines. And he kept saying, I'm going to be fine. I'll be there, come training camp. And, kind of against all odds, he made it back. And we're blessed to have Brock Purdy around this organization.
Yeah, last question. We thank you so much for your time. Comes from Ty, because it is kind of involved with what you just chatted about.
Yeah, John, and now it doesn't matter, because you guys have found Brock and you've been to a Super Bowl and an NFC championship with him. But how difficult was it navigating the whole Trey Lance situation, whether it's, kind of the pressure from ownership because you guys did sink so much draft capital into him, and then on the other side, you see the potential and the talent that he could have, envisioning him a couple years down the road. But how difficult was it navigating that situation when you have 2 other guys who, clearly are just, they're giving you the better chance to win? And at what point was it like, okay, maybe it's best if we just kind of give him a fresh start and a new opportunity elsewhere?
Yeah, it was difficult. You know, we invested a lot in Trey, and we had a lot of belief that he was the right guy. It was during the COVID period. It was tough to get out and see players a lot. You know, but ultimately we had belief in the young man, and we had a vision for how we were going to play with Trey at quarterback. You know, unfortunately, he got hurt a couple of times, and you know, when he hurt his ankle, you know, Brock came in eventually, and Brock kind of took it and ran with it. And you know, at some point, then you ask yourself, you know, like, what's in the organization's best interest? And some amount, like, you know, we still believe Trey can have a really good career in the NFL. You always got to look out for your organization, but at the same time, can we put Trey in a good position? And so, you know, we started talking to some people. The thing came about with the Cowboys, and you know, I'm hopeful that Trey gets his opportunity. Couldn't ask for a better guy, a stud human being, and I really do believe that he's going to have some success in this league. And wish nothing but the best for him and his family.
Yeah, that's NFL. There's only a certain amount of spots, you know. I appreciate you saying that about Trey, and we hope we're pulling for him too.
Yeah,
Hey, good luck out there, Trey.
Yeah.
John, you're a legend, man. Thank you so much for taking all this time on this glorious Thursday to chat with us.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. Congrats on all your success. It's fun watching what you guys have become. It's really cool. Peyton used to tell me about you, Pat, and so I've watched this kind of from afar. From the start, and it really is a remarkable story, and what you guys do on a day in, day out basis, really cool.
Yeah, it's all dumb, John. It's all very, very dumb, but you know, we're enjoying the hell out of it.
It works.
Just like it sounds like you are as well. You're the man. We hope to talk to you again.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, fellas. Thank you.
Super Bowl champion, 2 Ring of Honors, big brain Stanford guy, professional baseball player if you wanted to. John Lynch.
Yeah, John.